In pursuit of undisputed air superiority, the United States aims to bolster its Air Force with an advanced sixth-generation fighter, the F-47, expected to surpass existing Chinese counterparts. However, this ambitious project faces a significant hurdle: reliance on Chinese export materials, potentially jeopardizing the aircraft's deployment. America's once unquestioned leadership in military technology is increasingly challenged by advancements from China and Russia, particularly in hypersonic weapons, advanced air defense systems, and sixth-generation fighters. China's control over critical raw materials for defense technologies further complicates matters, creating a strategic vulnerability for the United States. China, having established itself as a global leader in the supply of rare earth elements, is increasing its economic influence. These materials, critical for modern technology, including the military industry, pose a significant threat to the F-47 NGA project, which Donald Trump has positioned as the pinnacle of his achievements. In response, the United States is actively forging military cooperation agreements with its allies in the Pacific region, seeking to strengthen its position. The focus is on high-precision missile systems, modern air defense networks, and projects that many experts call the air forces of the future. By taking these steps, Washington clearly intends to restore the balance of power in the skies over the Asia-Pacific region. Despite all efforts, there is a sense that these measures may be insufficient and overdue. China is making rapid strides in the development of hypersonic missiles, large-scale naval projects, and sixth-generation fighters. Against this backdrop, the strategic steps of the United States do not always keep pace with technological progress in the region. The White House administration recently unveiled a development dubbed the F-47, around which serious disputes are already unfolding. Within defense circles, there is talk that this aircraft could be a game-changer, unless, of course, China strikes at its most vulnerable point. Sources report that Donald Trump has high hopes for this sixth-generation fighter, viewing it as a kind of magnum opus. According to some reports, the U.S. Air Force, following instructions from above, is actively promoting the project, which should become the world's first sixth-generation fighter. Alongside other defense initiatives undertaken during the first presidential term, the F-47 NGA program, according to its supporters, is designed to provide America with unquestioned air superiority for many years to come. However, China appears to have decided to interfere with these plans, taking a step that calls into question the future of the ambitious project. Beijing has imposed restrictions on the export of minerals used in aviation electronics and radar systems, including critical rare earth elements. Experts argue that these measures could seriously hinder the production of some key components underlying the F-47. Thus, Trump's grand design, associated with the sixth-generation fighter, seems to have taken a tangible hit from the Chinese side. Will this attack put an end to the ambitious F-47 project? What will be the reaction of the Trump team, and how will this affect the balance of power and economic competition in the Pacific region? The United States has repeatedly demonstrated groundbreaking defense developments to the world. Since the 1990s, fifth-generation fighters, such as the F-22 Raptor and F-35 Lightning DSO, have become the cornerstone of the Pentagon's strategy to achieve air superiority. However, Donald Trump sought to take these achievements to a fundamentally new level. Initiated during his presidency, the NGA Next Generation Air Dominance project, designed to ensure air dominance in the future, put the development of the F-47 at the forefront. Trump envisioned this aircraft as a guarantee of America's security for many years to come. According to some reports, Boeing has undertaken the development of this model, and it should incorporate all advanced sixth-generation technologies, artificial intelligence-based sensor systems, integration of hypersonic weapons, drone swarm management, and minimal radar visibility. At first glance, this is not just an aircraft, but a real revolution in aircraft construction. However, the ability of the United States to translate this bold plan into reality largely depends on the stability of global supply chains. Without rare earth metals, the creation of modern radars and infrared sensors becomes almost impossible. Heat-resistant alloys, superconducting elements, and materials capable of absorbing electromagnetic radiation are also critically dependent on these minerals. And here, China takes center stage. It has long been known that Beijing controls a significant share of the global rare earth elements market. According to some data, this share exceeds 80%. Even according to the U.S. Department of Defense, there is no alternative to Chinese supplies of these strategically important materials. It appears that this dominant position is turning into a tool of pressure directed against the NGA project, initiated by the Trump administration. Several months ago, a White House representative, answering questions on this topic, stated that the government is considering various ways to ensure the security of the supply chain for the defense industry. However, some American media outlets and experts on social networks express much more serious concerns. According to them, Boeing is already facing a shortage of some key components needed to manufacture the F-47. If Beijing does decide on full-scale export restrictions, even prototype testing will be jeopardized. And here arises the main caveat, expressed in due time by Trump. Perhaps the measures being taken are insufficient and overdue. While China and Russia are demonstrating significant success in developing their own sixth-generation projects, the ambitious American F-47 NGA project may be jeopardized. But how appropriate is the word sabotage here? It seems to fully reflect the essence of the problem, since sixth-generation air power implies much more than just an advanced aircraft design. It is about a cockpit equipped with artificial intelligence algorithms, a computer network that relieves some of the pilot's workload and is able to instantly analyze emerging threats, the ability to patrol at high altitudes and even in near space, the ability to deliver coordinated strikes using a swarm of drones. The creation of an advanced electronic and software base necessary for the implementation of ambitious projects in the field of defense is inextricably linked to the use of high-performance chips created on the basis of rare minerals. However, paradoxically, the production of these vital components is critically dependent on the supply of raw materials from China. Moreover, it is argued that special alloys used to coat the hull of the latest developments require certain elements virtually monopolized by Beijing. Thus, the project that Donald Trump once called his main achievement may have become America's most vulnerable point in strategic terms. What was Trump's reaction to this delicate situation? According to information leaked to social networks, the ex-president allegedly told his closest advisors, "This is a direct threat to national security. We should have taken action much earlier." However, today another administration is in the White House, whose approach to solving the problem can be described as follows. It is necessary to make every effort to save this vital project. After all, the United States cannot afford to lose the sixth-generation arms race, especially when Russia and China are demonstrating rapid progress in this area. Maintaining leadership in the military sphere is becoming a matter of national security and global influence. However, the real complexity lies in the enormous costs associated with the rapid restructuring of such an extensive supply network. Analysts emphasize that the cost per unit of the F-47 has already reached exorbitant heights. Adding to this the need to purchase raw materials bypassing Chinese sources, one can expect that costs will increase exponentially. The question is, what price is Congress willing to pay? The Russian factor should not be overlooked either. Moscow is actively working on the Su-57 and Su-75 projects. And although the Su-57 faces difficulties in mass production and logistics, the very fact that Russia is going beyond the fifth generation of combat aircraft is causing concern in the United States. If Washington continues to increase geopolitical tensions with Russia, while simultaneously facing restrictions from China on the supply of raw materials, it risks being caught in a vice from both sides. This could turn Trump's ambitious F-47 project into a real nightmare. Given all these circumstances, China may have chosen the most opportune moment for its move. Seeking to weaken U.S. influence in the Asia-Pacific region, Beijing may view disrupting the development of the American sixth-generation aircraft as one of the most effective tools. The success of this strategy, of course, depends on China's willingness to maintain export restrictions in the long term. At the same time, are there no alternative routes? Some representatives of the American industry talk about the possibility of developing new mineral resources in Africa or South America, but the implementation of these projects may take years. Moreover, the political and economic instability in these regions significantly increases investment risks. It's also worth noting that Beijing has already entered into large-scale trade agreements in these parts of the world, which could give China an advantage if Washington decides to start resource exploration in Africa or South America. Another option is to turn to friendly countries, such as Australia and Canada. However, it remains unclear whether the existing reserves of these countries will be sufficient to fully meet the needs of American sixth-generation projects. However, the availability of resources is only part of the equation, as mining and processing minerals is a complex task. It's easy to say, let's quickly find a solution, But putting those words into reality is another story. Meanwhile, China is not standing still, actively developing its own sixth-generation fighter. While experts are discussing advanced versions of the J-20, the unexpected appearance of images of a new prototype, designated J-36, has sparked a wave of discussions in international military analytical circles. Beijing is also conducting advanced development in the field of autonomous drone swarms and hypersonic missiles. If successful, China may quickly close its gap with the United States not only in the field of fifth-generation fighters, but also in the race to create sixth-generation combat aircraft. This could mean the emergence of a serious competitor for the F-47, even before it takes to the skies. As the old saying goes, the best defense is offense. Beijing is likely seeking to weaken Washington's position, using not only a defensive strategy, but also actively applying advanced technologies and strategic raw materials. China also has a whole arsenal of means of economic pressure. Recent sanctions imposed by the United States against Beijing in various sectors, including restrictions on the supply of semiconductor technologies, only fuel this arms race. In response to the actions of the United States, Beijing may demonstrate its resolve by reducing exports of key components needed to manufacture American aircraft. According to some reports, this move by China may be aimed at disrupting large-scale projects related to the aviation industry, promoted by the Trump administration. Despite the White House's efforts to resolve the situation diplomatically, the prospects for reaching a lasting compromise remain unclear. For those interested in the technical aspects of the F-47, it is worth noting one of its most outstanding features, sensor fusion technology. This advanced system allows the aircraft to collect and process vast amounts of data from both the ground and the airspace, providing the pilot with instant and comprehensive situation analysis. However, such information processing capability requires the use of high-speed chips, in the production of which rare minerals supplied mainly from China play a key role. Special coatings, as well as artificial intelligence technologies, play a key role in creating stealth aircraft. It is reported that the F-47 is capable of predicting the pilot's actions, giving advice, and even automatically performing rescue operations in critical situations. The operation of such a system requires not only complex software, but also powerful equipment, which is based on essential metals. Defense projects have always been an important part of Donald Trump's political strategy. His slogan, "America First," was reflected in a huge defense budget, the jewel of which was the F-47. The former president argued that this sixth-generation aircraft would ensure absolute superiority on the battlefield. However, China, which is actively strengthening its position in the Asia-Pacific region, is trying to cool Washington's ardor, stating, "You can't build this plane without us." Observers believe that the measures taken may be only the first step in Beijing's strategy, allowing for stricter restrictions if necessary. There is talk behind the scenes about the possibility of a complete cessation of exports of certain specialized metal alloys or the establishment of exorbitant prices for them. However, the United States does not intend to stand aside. According to some reports, Washington is seriously considering the possibility of reviving domestic rare earth element mining in order to undermine China's monopoly. Significant reserves are known to exist in a number of U.S. regions, such as Nevada and California. However, it will take time to put these mines into operation due to environmental requirements and economic costs. In addition, the implementation of these plans may face resistance from local residents, environmental organizations, and political opponents. The desire for independence from China is capable of provoking a fierce internal political struggle. Thus, the fate of the F-47 project hinges on a complex equation that considers not only defense technologies but also domestic and foreign policy. In the intricate geopolitical landscape of the Asia-Pacific region, the interests of other players are crucial. Nations like Japan, South Korea, and Australia are seeking to strengthen defense cooperation with the United States, driven by their concerns about China's growing influence in the region. However, the concept of a sixth-generation fighter still seems a distant prospect to them. Currently, their priority is upgrading existing platforms such as the F-16 and F-35, as well as developing air defense systems. Nevertheless, if the F-47 project is successfully implemented and ready for mass production, these countries are likely to be interested. China, in turn, may have made a strategic move by using its resources as leverage to prevent such a scenario. A strategy based on the principle, if you seek dominance in the region through technological superiority, "I will create conditions in which you cannot produce weapons," seems quite logical. However, the question arises, is the F-47 project really at risk of being shut down? Sources close to the Pentagon claim that there is no talk of canceling the project, only delays. At the same time, some independent analysts fear that prolonged delays may ultimately lead to the project's termination. The rapid development of military aviation poses new challenges for the defense industry. Technologies become obsolete rapidly, and a design that seemed advanced today may be hopelessly outdated in just 5 years, especially if competitors are not idle and are developing breakthrough concepts. In these circumstances, the United States may be tempted by the prospect of starting a completely new project from scratch. However, such an arms race risks costing trillions for the defense budget, which is bound to raise questions among American taxpayers and in Congress, which will have to approve the relevant bills. But the problem is not limited to internal American realities. The world is engulfed in a race to acquire advanced technologies and strategic raw materials, with the Asia-Pacific region at the epicenter. China, building up its economic and military power, is challenging the United States' long-standing leadership on the world stage. In this context, projects such as the development of the F-47 fighter take on symbolic significance. Air superiority remains a crucial pillar of American foreign policy, and its loss could negatively affect a number of factors, from relations with allies to deterring potential adversaries. Against this background, Donald Trump's reaction goes far beyond simple dissatisfaction from a former president. Seeking to demonstrate to the world that the United States cannot be treated with contempt, he used the sixth-generation fighter project as a symbol of American power. The failure of this initiative could create the impression that the defense policy he pursued during his presidency was unsustainable. Such an outcome would undoubtedly cast a shadow on Trump's political legacy. That is why, according to some observers, the former president's team continues to actively support the relevance of this issue, seeing it as an opportunity for political revenge. In turn, the White House limits itself to restrained statements, emphasizing its determination to continue working on the project and overcome the difficulties that have arisen. However, behind this official rhetoric lies the recognition that Beijing is determined to disrupt the implementation of the F-47 program, exerting significant pressure on it. The question of whether the United States will be able to eliminate its dependence on critical raw materials in the short term, or whether China will be able to exert such a powerful influence that Trump's final project will fail, remains open. It is clear that competition in the Asia-Pacific region is intensifying every day, encompassing both economic and military spheres. The outcome of this confrontation, in which each side seeks to take the most strategically sound steps, is not yet predetermined. The fate of the F-47 project may be decided in the next year or two. If Boeing and the U.S. Department of Defense cannot diversify their sources of key materials, the project risks facing serious delays, up to the point of its closure. However, if the United States manages to quickly restructure its supply chains and allocate significant financial resources, the F-47 will have a chance to take to the skies in the coming years, becoming a symbol of American superiority in the sixth-generation arms race. The question of whether China can limit the United States' capabilities by controlling the supply of rare earth elements remains open. Can Washington's technological and financial power overcome these obstacles? Unexpected turns could still occur in this global competition. Soon, the horizons will open again for a closer look. But for now, it's worth keeping an eye on the pulsating life of the defense sector and the intricacies of the geopolitical arena. A new cartographic reality is unfolding in the skies over the Asia-Pacific region, where the F-47 fighter, bearing the name Trump, may have been destined for a key role. However, China, with its unexpected and effective maneuver, seems to have turned the chessboard upside down, confounding all the cards. Who will emerge triumphant in this complex game? Only time will tell. See